Hey guys, this is Andrew with Dark Horse Motor Company. I am here with John Dahmer, the general manager, and go-to crank lord here at Dark Horse. Today we are talking about our Man of War motor sprocket. A lot of people call it a compensator, but it's actually a sprocket. It's we developed it. Well, John, why don't you take over on that one as far as why we call it a sprocket?
So we call it our motor sprocket, right?
Yes.
I mean, of course, it comes off the output shaft, the sprocket shaft of any twin cam, late model twin cam, or M8. It delivers power through the drivetrain to the clutch and clutch basket, hence through the tranny and to the rear wheel. And the biggest mindset that I've always used is that it is a push drive for your primary system. It isn't a compensator in the true sense. And so we didn't want to call it a compensator, so we called it our motor sprocket. And it really, I guess the push drive, if you can see it here, I'm sure somebody could be giving you a close-up, but these cushions were developed. There's actually a company here in Wisconsin that produces them for us. And they're different durometers. And a number of items went into the development of these, right? My partner, Tom Holben, myself, and another engineer of ours by the name of John Purdy we are the three people on the patent for this product. Patented it a number of years ago already. Started developing it with twin cams. And I guess we were blessed that the M8 really didn't change compensators quite so much. If anything, there were a few issues when they came out with the M8s that we have never had to deal with. But again, going back to it, we call it a push drive. Mm-hmm. And it is, I believe, the most durable piece that's out there, as long as some of the things that we're going to talk about are addressed.
Right.
This does not have the slop, I'm going to say, as a OEM compensator. And that dynamic in itself creates some other issues if certain tolerances aren't correct.
Right. So we're going to go through a bunch of questions that we've received from a lot of different customers who are looking to purchase the product or have the product installed already on their bike. One of our customers, Lee, he asked us here about premature wear on the inner primary bearings due to increased rigidity and torque transfer from the Man of War motor sprocket. He actually wrote compensator, but I almost...
It really, we don't believe that there's any additional wear within the drivetrain, within the primary system. Where we get the core wear or core issues are typically either a sprocket shaft on your crankshaft that's out of tolerance, or the main shaft, or clutch issues. Given everything is adjusted properly and the runouts are proper on the sprocket shaft, we truly believe it goes back to, I'm going to say in 2007, I had a long discussion with some Harley engineers and also a good friend of mine that was a resident engineer at Harley from Regina. He worked for Regina. And in 2007, we started talking about some of the issues that we were seeing with crankshafts, some of the things that he was seeing as far as in the primary system. And one of the biggest dynamics going on at that point was there was some run-out issues on the sprocket shaft itself. And they found, they, meaning all of these guys, found that there were issues with the automatic chain tension unit, the automatic primary chain tensioner in the primary system, that it would ratchet up when it wasn't supposed to. And one of the primary reasons behind that is run out. Mm-hmm. And when you have the harmonics of a chain and sprocket that are running non-concentric, you can end up with that unit actually ratcheting it up when it's not supposed to, because of the amount of slack. There's a little something, M8 auto tensioners versus twin cam auto tensioners are different. The amount of power that the M8s are generating, actually the auto chain tensioner allows the chain to have more slack on the underside of it, under load, when and it will not ratchet up as fast as a twin cam. So we've actually done some experimenting with the M8 auto chain tensioners in high output twin cams, and they work very well. We've done all our testing, all our design work around the auto chain tensioner. Our number one goal, one of our primary goals when we first started this project was that you didn't have to buy, any customer did not have to buy anything else to go into their primary.
Right.
We wanted stock clutch baskets, stock clutches, stock auto chain tensioner, stock primary chain. All those items to go in, be able to replace your compensator with this unit. And really, my mindset has always been you would never know the difference between the two.
So that's great, because it actually leads us into our next question from Mike. Accelerated wear on primary chains and clutch baskets when stock components are retained. So you just mentioned a lot of that as far as the stock components and being manufactured or designed and developed around the stock adjuster and the stock clutch basket and all that stuff. So is there anything else that you really feel that you know, some of this accelerated wear information is true or false, or what do you feel?
Well, you know, it's one of the questions that I think you often answer is, did you check your primary chain in multiple places?
Correct.
Do you have a tight and loose spot in your primary chain? Mm-hmm. And that will really point out what some of the issues that you may see, because the run out of the sprocket shaft can generate a tight and loose spot in your primary chain. And that is what accelerates wear, really. Whether it causes over tightening, and it causes excessive wear because that primary chain has got any other sprocket.
It's always tugging on it, yeah. Now, is there a wear limit on the chain, do you feel? On the actual primary chain itself?
Well, that's a new question.
It is a new question.
Did you have it in there?
I did not have it in there, but I've actually somebody's asked me that before, so I didn't really know how to answer it. You know, do they wear? I do believe that they stretch, from my knowledge, but do they wear out? Or is it something that you should look at replacing?
I suppose you should. The nice thing about the primary system as a whole is it is an enclosed chain.
Sure.
It doesn't get dirt. It doesn't get grime. At least it shouldn't. It's if you remember, you go back to 1980 shovel head with an enclosed chain. In fact, you know, my partner Pat Holden had a 1980 that has somewhere around 300 and some odd thousand miles on it.
Oh, Jesus.
And for 200 and some of those, he ran the stock chain and sprockets because they stayed clean, they stayed lubricated, and they'll last a long time. I don't know that there's a service wear limit on that chain. Of course, tight and loose spots you certainly do not want in your primary system. Right.
But that goes back to the sprocket shaft runout then again.
Well, and it can create a tight and loose spot. If something gets jammed up in your primary system, that'll certainly stretch a chain, and you need to pay attention to it. But
and that goes along with the over tightening and stress issues with the automatic chain tensioner. So
and into your primary bearing.
Right.
There was a big correlation in 2007 between failed compensators, sprocket shaft run out, and failing inner primary bearings. If you track that, it's pretty critical that those three things all went together.
Right. So that's why I think we keep stressing the fact that the sprocket shaft runout is so important with this. It can help relieve a lot of issues that pop up, I feel. So
that's a big reason we designed this tool, right? This wasn't supposed to be about this tool. But, I'm going to also say that I'm pretty proud of that tool because it accurately measures the sprocket shaft runout.
Right, right.
And we can't get enough of these out there into the tech's hands, into the home builder's hands to accurately measure sprocket shafts in late model motorcycles.
The biggest thing too is that everybody thinks that, you know, that I get on the phone. It's like, well, I measured my pinion shaft runout and it was 2000s. So I'm like, well, the pinion shaft and sprocket shaft are two separate entities that don't relate to each other, especially when in a stock application when it's not been serviced. You know, so even after service, they're not exactly the same on each side, so you do have to focus on the sprocket shaft side a little bit more, I think.
Yeah, they're connected by a common crank pin, right? But I mean, outside of that, you can have excessive runout on your sprocket shaft side and actually the pinion shaft side be relatively good.
Right, right.
You know, I see a fair amount of videos on the internet that have perfect runout on the pinion shaft side, but that's only half of the story.
Right, right.
Right, and we don't necessarily look at the end of the pinion shaft to be the gauge as far as whether a crankshaft is really correct or not.
Right.
We look at all 4 points: end of the pinion shaft main bearing, sprocket shaft main bearing, and of course the end of the sprocket shaft. They all have correlation to how your bike is going to operate.
So we got another question here from Jim. Jim had sent us a question about neutral noise and vibration. Increased noise at idle in neutral due to rigid design of the motor sprocket. I get this question a lot.
Probably number one
question I get, and it's one of those things where it's like for 2007 to 16, twin cams are really inherent for it. I've heard a couple of the M8s have them, but the 07 to 16s are really, really common for it. John, why don't you tell them exactly what it is? Because I always mess up the first gear countershaft, main drive gear, whatever.
You're going to mess me up too. But the first gear on the countershaft in the transmission. The Harley engineers actually recognize that neutral knock with a tight compensator or one of our motor sprockets will create a neutral. I always call it neutral knock, neutral rattle, I think is what they have in the service bulletin. But regardless, the engine pulse, when you tighten up this sprocket, guys that run solid sprockets up front, I guarantee you they're having problems with it.
They hear it too, yeah.
We've tailored this cushion to do our best to eliminate that in twin cams. And I can't say that we've eliminated it completely. First gear counter, what they did in the M8 platform, which is actually an upgrade for the twin cams also, is, I call it a scissor gear on the first gear countershaft gear, which absorbs the lash and doesn't allow the gear to actually knock back and forth with its engaging gear. And that resolved really all of the neutral knock issues that we've been aware of. That gear can also lock up. And they use a similar gear actually on the M8 counterbalancers because that's a gear drive system. It alleviates the lash and the gears bouncing off each other. That's what creates the noise. So they did that in the counterbalancer. They did first gear countershaft. And it's done very, very well. Our complaints as far as noise and M8s are very, very minor. And if the customer or the technician properly measures runout, properly measures chain deflection, and sets the you're probably going to get to that.
We'll get to that,
sets the chain tensioner properly, and the alignment is correct, which probably the biggest thing in M8s versus twin cams. Twin cams have been very consistent as far as alignment with the clutch basket to either a motor sprocket or the compensator, and the alignment, it doesn't change whether you have a Harley compensator or you have our motor sprocket. The spacing and the alignment to this sprocket is very, very similar. The tolerances don't change. The thing in a compensator is it has a lot more give as it's ramping up, and you can twist that sprocket a little bit more. I'm not saying that that's right. They've developed and engineered that into the system where they can absorb more engine pulse, and it doesn't reflect down the drivetrain.
So, with that being said, have we found that the neutral knock or neutral rattle is hurting anything? Will it damage anything?
I really don't believe so. I mean, it happens to varying degrees in all twin cams,
right.
And I haven't seen any problems with it.
Right.
I can agree that it's a very annoying noise,
right.
and
right.
I guess I say in jest, and it's not funny because when it's happening to your bike, it can be kind of painful,
right.
especially if you're in a urban setting where you're in neutral a lot because you're in traffic. It sucks.
Yeah.
The only way to get around it really is put the upgraded gear in. It's a retrofit into all the twin cam trannies, 6-speed trannies, and it really does work. But I never want to say you have to go that way just to
eliminate it. It's not hurting anything. We haven't seen any sort of transmission or other driveline issues because of the neutral rattle or neutral knock happening with the motor.
You can soften up this system to the point of reducing it greatly. The problem is it creates more issues in other places, especially under a load. So my answer to that in jest has always been, don't idle so much. Right? Get down the road and ride your motorcycle, but I get it. It's a pain in the butt. So
we also talk about a lot of questions I get as far as the cushions on the inside. What is the wear limit? How many miles am I going to get out of it? What kind of horsepower is it rated for? What configurations can I put them in? When they start to break down, what do you see when they start to break down? There's so many questions about the cushions that are great questions, and we need to let them know exactly what they're looking for, the intervals as far as when we're checking them.
Yeah. So one of the unique things that I don't want to call it luck, but it is a little bit of luck. We designed these green cushions that actually have a lower durometer, which means it's a softer setup, and we put that on the drive side to absorb the engine pulse to the best of our abilities without going too soft. And what it actually does is the greens will wear fastest because they're on the drive side. When the greens wear, you start getting some residual or witness of the green cushions in your primary area. So that is the time, certainly, if you don't follow the intervals. We say 10,000 mile intervals. You can pull the main bolt out and pull these 4 covers. You don't have to take the clutch basket apart. You don't have to pull this off of the chain. You don't have to pull the chain off. You don't have to pull anything. You pull this out. You pull the 4 bolts out, and you can actually look at these cushions and make sure that they're not deteriorating to the grade of failure. Because if this becomes loose, it will wear very quickly. And that's the same thing when we have a bent sprocket shaft and it's wearing on it. It's not designed to handle high amounts of runout.
Right.
It's also what wears out OEM compensators. When you find that you have excessive wear, some of those earlier ones, you'd get 25,000 miles out of a compensator and it was junk or even less.
Right.
I always believed it wasn't really the compensator that was the root issue. It was runout. Check your runout on your crankshaft, right? So, but getting back to it, you will see witness of this green cushion, little specks in your primary oil. If you start seeing metal, you've waited way too long, right? Because there's at least should be 10,000 miles on any typical touring bike. Even with a cam or even a big bore, anything under 130, 140 horsepower treated with respect you're not going to have any problems with it. In 10,000 mile intervals, get a look at it, make sure that they're okay.
Right.
If you again, if you start seeing the witness of it, then you got issues. But it's very easy to get apart, and probably 20 minutes, 15 minutes worth of work. If you're changing your primary oil, it's even faster, and you're not going to lose anything. You can look at it and get it resolved.
Yeah, I've had a lot of customers talk to me at Sturgis or in Daytona about how many miles they got on their motor sprockets. I had a customer meet me in Sturgis, and he had 45,000 miles on his motor sprocket, and he hadn't touched the cushions yet. I was like, "Good for you, man, but you should probably check those pretty soon."
Yeah, right.
But it's really, it depends on also how you ride the bike. You know, if you're really aggressive with it, you want to check them, you know, as often as you can, and then replace them probably around 20 or 30,000 miles. But typically 40 is kind of where we're at, right?
Yeah, I mean, the original goal was 30,000 miles before they had to change them.
Yep.
For $49.95, you can get a set of cushions and replace them. You might need the tool, right? You brought the tool out and put it on the desk there. A lot of our mechanics, a lot of the shops that we do work with now have that tool. It makes it very easy to replace them. Within an hour, you should be able to replace all the cushions. So hour of shop labor, $49.95 for the cushions and a primary gasket and some oil, and you're back on the road. You don't have to replace the entire unit. There's the billet ramps now that are out.
Yep.
There is still wear on that unit. The billet ramps are stronger, but the opposite side of that is they still wear, and they can gall between the sprocket splines and the ramps. And now you're replacing all of it.
Right.
And now you're replacing a billet ramp and the compensator.
And the whole compensator as well.
And that gets very, very costly. So we still feel very strongly this is an economical way of going about it.
Right.
It is bulletproof as long as, again, all the tolerances are addressed and kept, and we're very proud of it.
Right on. So as far as the there's another Lee asked another question here. Oil contamination from where? Metal particles found in the primary due to increased stress on the drivetrain. I haven't had anybody ask me that question or even bring that topic up to me. I've only had it where somebody did say that there was some material in there, but it was really fine black material, and I just took that as maybe coming from the clutch pack, potentially.
There are a number of wear items within the primary system, right? And we have seen it. You know what? We can't lie. I mean, we've seen it where the cushions have completely degraded to the point of it was metal on metal.
Right.
And again, if you get that far, it's too late.
Right.
Luckily, we can still rebuild it. We can put new hubs. We can put new sprockets. This product is all made in Wisconsin.
Yep.
From the cushions to the face plates to the bushings, sprockets, hub, you name it. This is people talk about made in the USA. This is truly a made in Wisconsin part.
Absolutely.
Heat treat is done in Marinette, Wisconsin. So from basically from Milwaukee to Marinette and Door County. That encompasses every part that you see within our motor sprocket, which is pretty cool and something we're very proud of.
Absolutely. Right? Yep, absolutely. So I guess the last thing is going to be, fitment. The motor sprocket itself is going to be the same for both applications, right?
Correct.
So the one thing that
both applications being M8
and twin cam.
Touring models.
Touring models, yes. Yes, because Softails are, so there's a variance there with some of the Softail applications.
Did you bring one of those hubs out?
I did not bring a Softail hub out. I wasn't prepped for this.
I guess so.
It was last minute kind of deal, right?
It's okay.
So the spacer we have here is it differentiates the unit from a twin cam, 07 and up twin cam to a Milwaukee 8 application. So the Milwaukee 8s don't use the spacer, twin cams will use the spacer. They are available for 07 to 16 twin cam applications And then we do have them available for 17 to present Milwaukee 8 applications. And then we have our Softail wide tire application, which is not on the table here, but the hub is a little bit wider. And it fits the 17 to present Breakouts, Fat Boys. What's the other fat? There's like 3 of them, I think.
You know that better.
But those are also available for you through our website. If you guys have any questions for us, would you like us to answer some questions or any sort of feedback that you want us to share with you? We'd be happy to. You can always call. What?
Well,
did I forget something? I did.
Well, you brought these out.
I did.
Right?
I did, yes. Yeah.
So I'm sure
we're going to edit all that out there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll rearrange that, and as long as we stay seated in the same positions. One of the keys to I don't know how long-winded I should get as far as our bushing and oil to our bushing, but of course Harley had their struggles with getting enough oil interior into the compensator. The unique thing that we had is we had actually an oil impregnated bushing that we utilized in our sprocket at first.
Yeah.
Because of the oiling issues. Then Harley came out and they had these trays that you could glue, JB weld into your outer primary cover, which would drip oil onto this Torx bolt. And this always intrigued me. And I was lucky enough to actually get up and meet the lead engineer on this small piece, which I thought was very cool. And so we did a number of studies and tests and R&D as far as getting oil to the interior of our motor sprocket and to this bushing in specific. And what we ended up coming up with was utilizing the OEM bolt and its conical shape. So the reason that it's conical shaped is these trays will drip oil onto the exterior of this bolt. And as it is, of course, spinning at RPM, oil will travel that bolt up into what we call our oil slinger. But this captures the oil and actually forces it into past these holes on our faceplate and to the bushing. And so we're able to guide and regulate how much oil it gets to the interior of our motor sprocket and bushing and the hub. And that has greatly increased also wear. We can always rebuild a sprocket with a new bushing. That's not a problem at all. We do it often enough, I guess, and we manufacture the bushings right here in-house, so that's not a problem. But we do feel on earlier twin cams, this product will live in the primary system without one of these trays put in an earlier twin cam. I think what's that? Dyna and Softail are one
Correct.
Model, and Touring is another model. Yep. And anything late model, I'm going to say like 13 and up, that is already built into the outer primary.
Well, I want to say 12.
I had a 12, and I don't think it was.
Was it 13? 13. Yeah,
13.
You're right.
So,
13. Yeah.
Regardless, we do feel that that's very important in order to get proper oiling into the interior of our motor sprocket. It just helps with longevity, and it will treat you well for a long time.
So you guys with the earlier applications, 07 to 12, we do have complete kits available for you that come with a new rotor, a new bolt, the oil deflector, and the motor sprocket and the spacer, and it's set up for your application. Unfortunately, which I get this question a lot as well, we do not make a motor sprocket for earlier applications. 07 to present now is currently what we are manufacturing them for. Early stuff. John, why don't we make one for the early models? Let's throw that out there because everybody asks.
Well, part of it, of course, is how the system works. The size of the cushion, the volume of the cushion is very critical. These cushions actually, because they are a Viton, they will actually compress and expand, and they do that how many ever millions times you're running at RPM for an hour. But regardless, this unit is very critical with the volume. And there's a certain volume actually that we have that it can expand into this cavity in this sprocket. It will expand and contract in this cavity, again, thousands and thousands of times, millions of times. And that did not happen easily. That took a fair amount of testing, a lot of miles. We all had to put on our motorcycles to really durability test that with the volume. If you make it too tight, it has nowhere to compress. It basically turns into a solid. If you make it too loose, it becomes noisy because there's nothing, the engine pulse, it just starts, the harmonics and the vibration of it will just basically eat it.
Should we go down in the basement and grab the bin of all of the?
No, it's not.
It's awesome. I have to say, it's probably some of the coolest shit I've seen in a while.
Yeah. We've been very blessed. There's a lot of due diligence that went into this piece before we left it out onto the open market, and you know what? We continue to improve. I mean, there'll be more and more products that we're developing in and around this because we can.
Right. Absolutely. You got anything else?
I just start ending it, and then I'll
just start ending it. Okay. Just start over again. What the fuck? All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time. We want to know, like I said, if you guys have any feedback for us, we always want to hear some questions that you might have. And all of our motor sprockets are available through our website. They are also now available through Drag Specialties. So you can go to your local Drag Specialties dealer and purchase the motor sprocket, as well as any of your independent local shops that you can get it as well. Thank you.